Good evening. Tonight is Tuesday, May 28, 2024. We have two meetings tonight. We have a special meeting for the canvass of votes, and we have a regularly scheduled meeting. The first meeting is going to be special meeting canvass of the votes. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Howard.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, everyone, sit down.
Thank you.
I told you to sit down, but you didn't listen to me.
Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Here.
Mr. Doré, Mr. Grant, Mr. Harvey,
Here.
Mr. Howard,
Here.
Mr. Levenstein, Ms. Mineo,
Here.
Ms. Politti,
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Before we get into Resolution 2.1, I'm going to ask Mr. Shaw to explain exactly what you'll be witnessing for probably the next 20 to 30 minutes and the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. So tonight there will be the conclusion of the election for board members that occurred at the meeting on May 21st. There are certain votes that need to be accounted for tonight, and the board clerk will be conducting the final stages of the canvass, and this will include the consideration of certain absentee ballots that were cast in election districts of the school district. So I believe some will be coming forward to the table to conduct these proceedings. And at the conclusion, there will be a determination of the candidates and who finished in what order and how they will be seated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Mr. President, I might have said absentee ballots. I meant affidavit ballots.
Thank you for the correction. Okay, so we have a Resolution 2.1, Resolution and Declaration tabulating and canvassing the return of the May 21st, 2024 Annual District Meeting. Could I get a motion and a second for this resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Point of order.
Okay.
Point of order. What's on the floor now, sir? 2.1?
2.1.
So we need to canvass the ballots first, sir.
Okay.
So can somebody just has to withdraw that motion? Who made that motion?
I will withdraw the motion. Oh.
Thank you, sir. Okay. My name is Matthew McCoy. I'm the district clerk for the Newburgh and Large City School District. And sitting with me at the table are the two poll clerks that were appointed by the board at the last special meeting. To my left is Ms. Cheryl Chapo, and to my right is Ms. Felicia Powell. At the election on May 21st, there was 28 affidavit ballots handed in on election day. The process is the clerk then sends those names of the voters to the Board of Elections the next day to find out whether or not the 28 voters were registered. Out of the 28 that were sent to the Board of Elections, there's 21 registered voters in the box. There was 6 people not registered, and one of the envelopes on the outside is completely blank. So there's 21 people registered, plus the 6 that weren't, and the one that's blank, that's 7. Those are the 28 ballots that were turned into the clerk on Election Day. So we're going to start off. They've been divvied up into election districts. I will just read the names according to the Board of Elections and election law. You just read the names of the people that turned in ballots for affidavits. And then once we go from there. So the ballots were turned in by Susan Lawson and Nilda Gonzalez at Vales Gate, Patricia Petrito, Jessica Marin, Hector Perez, Alex Arvardo, Keith Martin, Ignara Lopez, Melissa Longaro, and Brandon Welling at New Windsor. Gail Fulton and Alicia Schreiner at Fostertown, Stacy Yerger and Alfred Yerger at Meadow Hill, Kyle Rogers, Carrie Butler, and Desiree Casablanca at Bombville, Genesis Hemway, Brian Kubin, Adam Mejias, Yvette Colon, Tara Salberg, Michael Beeman, Madeline Schoolmaker, Anna Caesar Fredericks, and the blank ballot was turned in at NFA. Carlos Copino and Dennis Castro at Horizons. So we will start with Susan Lawson. We'll start and the ballots that were turned in and verified signatures. So in the packet in front of you, the poll clerks, here's a list of the names I just read off. And starting with the first page, we're going to go to Susan Lawson. Verify the signature. Start with Ms. Chappell. Is the signature, do you feel the signature matches?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Next on the list, Nilda and Gonzalez. Do you feel the signature matches?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Moving on to New Windsor. Believe that signature matches?
Yes.
Yes. On to the next. Do you believe this signature matches?
Yes.
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 Do you believe that signature matches?
Yes.
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 Do you believe this signature matches? Yes.
Yes.
Do you believe this signature matches? Yes. Do you believe this signature matches?
Yes.
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 Do you believe this signature matches?
Yes.
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 This is the one person not registered that went to New Windsor. So this vote will be put back in the ballot box and not counted. Do you believe the signature matches?
Yes.
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 Do you believe this signature matches?
Yes.
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 Do you believe the signature matches? Yes. Do you believe the signature matches? You're a no?
This.
Yes.
Yes.
It's 2 yeses, so that's a yes. Moving on to fiscal. Do you believe the signature matches?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you believe the signature matches? Yes. Do you believe the signature matches? Yes.
Yes.
Do you believe the signature matches?
Yes.
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 You believe the signature matches? Do you believe the signature matches?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you believe the signature matches? Yes. you believe the signature matches?
No.
No. These are all non-registered voters. Two noes. There's 20 valid ballots here. I'll open them up. We will. Oh, my little. Just take a pile and shuffle them up. So shuffle those up. Just put them in order so they're all, you just put them in order. Yeah, so they're all like in the same order, so when we open them. Yeah.
Oh, no, you said don't.
Yeah, just, yeah, make sure they all just line them up like that.
Piece of paper.
Okay, I'll read the results of the ballot by ballot, and the clerks will, I'll read those results ballot by ballot, and the clerks at each side will mark them down.
What's she doing?
You want to do the,
I'll do the other one.
you'll do the propositions, and you'll do the board members, okay? Proposition 1, no. Proposition 2, no. Board members, Christine M. Bello, Philip Howard, Ray Harvey, Tanika McCullough, Sade Burks, Mark Levenstein. Does that read right?
Yep.
On to the next. Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes. Does that read right? Does that read right?
Yep.
Board members, Tanika McCullough. Does that read right?
Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes. Does that read right?
Yes.
Does that read right?
Yes.
Board members, Philip Howard, Ray Harvey, Tanika McCullough, Bob Capano, Mark Levenstein, Dennis W. Grant. Does that read right?
Yes. Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Board members, Christine M. Bello, Nabil A. Khan, Ray Harvey, Victoria Boucher, Mark Levenstein.
Yes.
Proposition 1, no. Proposition 2, no. Does that read right?
Yes.
Does that read right?
Yes.
Board members, Christine M. Bello, Philip Howard, Nabil A. Khan, Victoria Boucher, Bob Capano, Fred Stewart.
Yes.
Proposition 1, no. Proposition 2, yes. Does that read right?
Yes.
Is that read right?
Yes.
Board members, Christine M. Bello, Philip Howard, Ray Harvey, Tanika McCullough, Fred Stewart.
Yes. Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Philip Howard, Sade Burks.
Yes. Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Board members, Philip Howard, Ray Harvey, Sade Burks, Mark Levenstein.
Yes. Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, no.
Yes. Yes.
There's no vote for the board.
Correct.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes.
Correct. Correct.
Christine M. Bello, Philip Howard, Ray Harvey, Tanika McCullough, Mark Levenstein, Dennis W. Grant.
Yes.
Proposition 1, no. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes.
Board of Education, Christine M. Bello, Mackenzie Boucher, Victoria Boucher, Fred Stewart, Thomasina A. Bello.
Correct. Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes.
Tanika McCullough.
Yes. Yes.
Proposition 1, no. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes.
Board members, Christine M. Bello, Mackenzie Boucher, Victoria Boucher, Fred Stewart, Thomasina A. Bello.
Yes. Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes.
Board members, Christine M. Bello, Nabil A. Khan.
Yes. Yes.
Proposition 1, no. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Board members, Christine M. Bello, Nabil A. Khan, Mackenzie Boucher, Sade Burks, Mark Levenstein, Dennis W. Grant.
Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes. Tanika McCullough.
Yes. Yeah.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes.
Christine M. Bello, Mackenzie Boucher, Victoria Boucher, Fred Stewart, Thomasina A. Bello.
Yes. Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes.
Christine M. Bello, Ray Harvey, Tanika McCullough, Victoria Boucher, Sade Burks, Fred Stewart.
Yes. Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, no.
Yes.
Board members, Nabil A. Khan, Tanika McCullough, Sade Burks.
Yes. Yes.
Proposition 1, yes. Proposition 2, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Philip Howard, Ray Harvey, Sade Burks, Mark Levenstein.
Yes.
Paper here. I had one here that worked. The results are as follows. Proposition 1 was defeated 1,097 noes to 1,002 yeses. Proposition 2 was passed 1,344 yes, 742 no. The board vote, the number one vote getter with 1,161 votes was Christine Embello. Number 2 with 871 votes, Mackenzie Boucher. We have a tie for the third seat. Thomasina A. Bello at 856 total. Mr. Philip Howard at 856 total. Coming in number 4, Victoria Boucher with 852 votes. And the sixth person elected to the board would be Mr. Fred Stewart with 839 votes. Finishing in 7th would be Mr. Mark Levenstein with 831 votes. $762 votes, finishing in 8th for Mr. Bob Capano. Finishing in 9th with 752 votes, Mr. Ray Harvey. 10th. Tenth would be 623 votes for Ms. Sade Burks. 11th at 598 votes, Tanika McCullough. Nabil A. Khan with 455 votes, finishing in 12th. And Dennis W. Grant with 428 votes, finishing in 13th. Mr. President, I'm going to ask if you would kindly give a sort of 10-minute recess. I need to fill out the canvass of the vote resolution. And I need some legal advice regarding the tie, because the canvass of the vote has to, all the votes in it, so we just need a 10-minute recess, Mr. President.
We do apologize for the delay. It's very important that we get it right, and it took some time. So, again, we apologize, especially to the kids that were here waiting. We're moving on to 2.1, resolution and declaration, tabulating and canvassing the return of the May 21st annual district meeting. We did have a tie for we had a tie for third place. And that's going to be settled on June 18th with a runoff election. For the moment, Mr. Howard will stay on the board until that time. So we have resolution. Can I get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
We good?
Can I call the roll?
Yeah, call the vote.
Mr. Doré,
Yes.
Mr. Howard, Mr. Levenstein,
Yes.
Ms. Politti,
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli.
Yes.
That item passes. Mr. President, I'd just like to thank all the election inspectors that worked the May 21st election. There was over 60 people that worked, that came in. The Board of Elections has been outstanding in terms of helping me out with this close election. And I also want to thank the poll clerks that the board appointed that helped us out tonight, Cheryl and Felicia. Just to let, thank you. So Cheryl and Felicia were asked and appointed to do that before they knew we were going to be live and in person in front of everybody. So I really thank them for that. And that concludes the canvass of the votes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We will move to adjournment of the special meeting. If I get a motion and a second for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
I'll call the roll.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Levenstein? Yes. Ms. Politti?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes. All right, special meeting concludes. It's still Tuesday, May 28th. It's a regular meeting of the Board of Education. And we will begin this meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Levenstein.
We're now at the portion of the oath of office. I will ask Mrs. Christine Bello, Mr. Fred Stewart, and Victoria Boucher to come up to the dais, to the seats, and we'll do the oath of office.
Just gotta get Chris.
I'm going to swear you into the oath of office that the term expires June 30th, 2024. You want to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of trustee
of the office of trustee
of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. This is the oath of office starting today and expiring on June 30th, 2025. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of trustee
of the office of trustee
of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Stewart, you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of trustee
of the office of trustee
of the Board of Education
of the Board of Education
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations, sir.
Good evening and welcome to the new trustees. We look forward to working with you. Tonight, I have the privilege of introducing Ms. Pushkanter, who will only read the names because we know that our scholars had to leave. Thank you so much for organizing this with Dr. Freeman Mack. It's really important. So if you can come on up and let everyone know exactly what this was, and if you can read the students' names, and we'll make sure that we get them on the website. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for coming to celebrate our students tonight. The celebration is to recognize our students who wrote amazing, and I mean amazing essays for Women's History Month. And by the way, I had over 150 entries to go through. So they did a fabulous job writing about the women who made an impact in their lives, whether it be somebody in history, someone special in their lives, such as their mother, their grandmother, an aunt, or even a friend, or a teacher. And some of them also wrote about their teachers, so thank you for that. The most noteworthy essays were written by the following students: Ashlyn Blanton from NFA Maine, Aiden Marin Morales from NFA Maine, Venus Castellanos Sandoval from NFA Maine, Gabriela Pena, NFA North, AJ Johnson from NFA North, Josiah Sinclair from NFA North, Edwin Lopez from NFA, Ashlyn Leclerc from South, Eliana Ramos from Temple, and Gustav Borges from Heritage, all of which are 8th graders, I apologize. The students before that were all high schoolers from 12th, 11th, and then 9 and 10. 7th grade, Hillary Armand from South, Chloe Ann Brown from Heritage, and Natalia Martinez from Heritage. Top 6th graders were Juliana Ronducci from Temple, Emily Bianco, and Riley Frederick from Heritage. 5th grade, Rhea Reynolds from Kayla Alvarado, and Jana Quiroga from Fostertown. 4th grade was Goldie Kulisek, Jesse Kamgang, and Sunrise Kulisek from Gardnertown and New Windsor. And 3rd grade, we had Mila Conklin, Stephen Garcia, and Audrey Nielsen from Temple Elementary. Thank you all.
Thank you to our scholars who are participating and recognizing the women in your essays in such a powerful way. Thank you, Ms. Pushkanter. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Minnie Campbell. We move on to public comment on agenda items. Tonight we have one person signed up for agenda items.
Ms. Deb Boulay.
Good evening. Our financial problems this year are only the tip of the iceberg. You must explain how this happened. You must tell us why, after 9 years of stability and surplus, we are suddenly in this deficit, not just for this year, but up to $12 million next year and $29 million the year after. Your calculations. How many schools will have to close? What will happen to our children? Significant changes must happen in your mindsets to significantly change your structure, your spending, and much more. How was this not forecasted and predicted? Why did you not act sooner by placing a moratorium on spending or work harder at solutions? Are you connected? No water, no toilet paper, mouse infestation, etc. I would have asked those administrators to go home, but you had offered to invite them to an all-expense-paid trip to Las Vegas. The arrogance to raise taxes, suck money from the reserves, cut 106 jobs, none of which even come close to touching administration, and at the same time fund a Vegas trip is reprehensible. You have yet to vote to rescind this trip, and it's not on tonight's agenda. Are you connected? Your decision to not create a new budget, one that includes equity, one that finally restructures this colossal top layer into a form that aligns with learning, not only showed stubbornness, but in my opinion, lack of leadership. You have the audacity to include in tonight's agenda a motion for the board to fund a new contract for administrators through 2027. I can't believe it. With a failed budget, it's item 8.10. Your decisions continue to astound me. There are only 3 new members sitting here tonight. Will we watch the majority pass the raises for administrators? Are you connected? The voters have spoken. See them, hear them. You must not sidestep your moral obligation to present a new budget. The last time the budget failed in 2003, that Board of Ed presented a second budget that was passed with changes to the first. Are you using contingency as a retribution? Your contingency plan right here that you published calls for the elimination of 3 teachers and 2 teachers on special assignment. Yet, at the end of last week, employees were told of cuts that equal 1 teacher per grade in some schools. So are you cutting now those 106 jobs? Is that legal? Your policies, your organizational structure have been a failure for years. The graduation rate has not increased. Your budget excludes yet again any type of accountability for the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids that you find a way to pass that are illiterate. You send them off with no regard for the disadvantages and burdens they will carry for the rest of their lives. How many funerals have you attended for students? Me, 5. How many times have you visited Orange County Jail to speak to a student who just murdered another? Me, once. Are you at all connected to the realities? Do you care? Have you witnessed the destructive cries for help for those students who know that they are illiterate and continually are asked to perform above what they're capable of? You throw these humans overboard, and you're doing it again now. Redo this budget. Cut at the top and in places that don't affect learning. Teachers don't need all the people you assign telling them what to do, when to do, how to do it. They are the experts. Get these people out of their way. Put a high school reading program in this budget, bring back all the teaching assistants. The cost for another vote now is going to cost you nothing since you're doing a runoff on June 18th. Give us a new budget to vote on in a few weeks, a real one. Get connected and take responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on agenda items? Yes, sir.
Thank you. David Ryan, local resident. First of all, I've been vocal in the public about this past election, and I just want to tell you, despite my skepticism and that of many others, I was impressed with the process you ran tonight, and I want to congratulate you. It's not because it fell in the position that I preferred. It's because you honestly did run what seemed to be a very fair process, even though from where I sat for the last week, it did not seem so. So, you know, when you can admit you're wrong, I think that's something very important. So I own that. I don't have much time to stay with you tonight, so I won't see all your business. But the things I hope that you'll work on as a board for the coming year, speaking as a taxpayer, is I really don't think we need to have any sex offenders on our property. Currently, we have a policy that is contrary to that, that allows them in certain cases. I'd like you to consider that. I'd like you to consider not putting before us a contingent budget, but to go and do the hard work, shoulder up, find those spaces where we can cut and where we can find economies of scale and put another budget before the people to vote on. I'm sure if we took another bite at the apple, now that you have to anyway, with the runoff, that you might find a very different result from the public. I certainly know that with the people I've stirred up, I would support a budget that if I knew that it was reworked. There's definitely room in there. I'm not going to get specific as to where you need to cut. I think that's your job. But I really think that the public has spoken. And I think if you put a contingency budget out, it's a real slap in the face to the public. It says, you know what? We know better. But this time the public has really spoken to you. They've said this budget is not what we want. We want you to try and do it again. So we didn't give you an F, we gave you a D-. So come back and give us an A+ budget, and I'm sure the public will pass it. For those of you that have served, I honor your service. I do truly appreciate your time on the board. I know what you do is thankless. I know what you do is without pay. The only thing that you give up is your time, which is invaluable. So I truly, and not just lip service, truly mean that. Thank you very much for your service for the time that you have served. And I really am looking forward to a new and exciting board coming, the next school year. So thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on agenda items? All right, we'll move to non-agenda items.
There's one person signed up for non-agenda items, sir, and that's Ms. Deb Boucher.
Boulay.
Sure, sorry.
I kept my
Ms.
birth
Deb
name.
Boulay. Sorry.
Deb Boulay. The point comes on page 2, so bear with me. I decided to become a teacher in my 40s. I had a career at that time, but had always been drawn to the children and the people who either had no voice or were unable to use it. I, for example, had a severe stuttering problem when I entered the school system, and had it not been for a caring teacher who connected me to a speech therapist for free, I may never have been able to articulate all that I had to say and teach. Had I not been given the help and support I needed to overcome childhood trauma, I may have ended up broken. During my student teaching at the Mount, as the oldest student in the master's program, a 4th grade teacher at Bishop Dunn Memorial School fell down the stairs in her home and died in late winter. I was asked to take over that classroom for the rest of the school year. After prayer and reflection, I decided to do it. I will never forget my first day entering her class. All the teacher's belongings were right where she left them, every knick-knack, every pillow, her sweater hanging from the chair. Those students did not want me there. They wanted no one there except their beloved but deceased teacher. I was in her space, and I was unwanted, no worse. I was hated for taking her place. Day by day, leaving everything in its physical place, I taught and took steps forward. About a month later, a student leader in the class asked if she could speak for the class. She apologized, a 4th grader apologized for the way they acted towards me and asked if the class could possibly pack up the teacher's belongings and make room for some of mine. The rest of that school year was the best experience I ever had in a classroom. I learned so much, not taught in graduate school, about compassion and love and kindness and connection that must exist in a classroom so that learning can take place. I stayed the next year and experienced on September 11th a hijacked plane flying low over the Hudson River right past my classroom window. I experienced 3 knocks on the door from my principal, advising me that the first plane had gone through the Trade Center, then the second, and then the third advising me that the country was under attack, all the while me knowing that I had 4 students in that class whose parents worked at the Trade Center. Some of those students in both my first and second years at Bishop Dunn still stay in contact with me. Parents do. They gave me this. This goes all the way back to 2002. And as I stated earlier, I've attended funerals for students, jails. I've had a student show up tell me he had a gun in his backpack because he forgot to take it out on Sunday. Another student had over 50 lighters because he liked fire, he told me. A student told me she was being sexually abused by her brother. And the list goes on, along with those students whose parents took accountability, worked 2 and 3 jobs, people who didn't speak the English language. So there are triumphs and there are tragedies in this district. My point in speaking here now is to be clear that your welcome on this Board of Education may be just like my entrance into that 4th grade classroom. That was the experience for me last year. However, with 5 of you coming on, I will pray diligently that in July, perhaps a white flag of surrender to vendettas and hatred and fear of exposure might be flown in this very room. Despite the financial chaos, despite all of the problems that exist in this district, the one common thread in finding real solutions is honesty, accountability, connectiveness, and love. I have never been more hopeful that this district can rise from the ashes, beauty from ashes, and become an example for the whole state. I want to close with the first page of this book that I was given, and one of my mentors, someone very special to me, wrote this for me. It's called Educational Caring. Please listen. Children are at once delicate and resilient. They are simultaneously very much alike and remarkably different from one another. We cannot construct a child's mind. We may not even be capable of reconstructing it, at least not very much. We can, however, try to understand a mind, seek to nurture it, learn to love it, and strive not to harm it. This is a highly complex, artful, and important process, one that entails far more than conveying large quantities of fact and skill. To provide true educational care is to demonstrate authentic respect for a child's unique mind while caring about it and caring for it. So I say to you in closing, don't ever lose sight of who you serve, and you have to love them all. May God bless you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on non-agenda items?
Yes.
I think that's Mr. Harvey.
Oh, my God. I don't even know where to start. But I do know this. When you get up and you start off belittling people, and then you want to switch, I thought we was here for the kids. I really thought we was here for the kids. And apparently we have a set gender. Now, I came on this board, 4 months, 6 months, I sat on this board. And when you stand back here and you don't get to know how the process is until you go in the closed doors. And you have to listen to the guidelines that are set, not by nobody sitting here, but by the state of New York. It's the same thing with teachers. They have guidelines that they got to go by. So it's not nobody in here making these guidelines. It's coming from the state of New York. And you must go by these guidelines. Because if not, guess what happens? The state comes down. And we don't need that. Because I see our scholars every day. And further as going to funerals, I don't even want to talk about that. Because I'm from the hood. The black and brown kids, let's talk about them. Because them the ones that get more affected by a failed system that was never set up for us. If you really want to know the truth. If you want to speak the truth, then we'll speak the truth. I'm not speaking to you. You took it as I was speaking to you.
Mr. Harvey, excuse me. Mr. Harvey, you're speaking to the board. Please.
Because it bothers me when people get up here and say how much they care about the community. I'm in the community every day. I don't see none of them in the community with me. So when you start coming into my community to understand what's going on in my community, right? And why these kids are struggling because they ain't got lights on, or they ain't got no food to eat, or they got to go to work to help their mother, right? Then you can understand the struggle in my community. And for people to get up here and to attack, we here to work together, man. I work with anybody. If anybody that knows me tells me I will sit down with anybody, long as for the good of my community. But don't try to jerk me around because you can't. I'm a 66-year-old black man that was born in North Carolina. I'm here because of a teacher that told me, because he saw where I was going. Because I didn't care. He said, you need to go in the military and get structure. That's what I did. Every time I go home, I look that man up. He's now the superintendent of the high school. And I let him know how much I appreciate him. So we all got stories. But we can't get up here and start attacking people if we really want to do this and do it right. And we want to talk about the budget. We worked on the budget. It was plenty of opportunity for people to come down and talk about the budget. Nobody showed up. The only people that's going to suffer from the budget is the kids. All districts, most of the districts around here, because I did some research myself. I might be an old country boy, but I'm not stupid. And most of them have, for every year, constant raising the budget. We went 9 years without it. Was that a mistake? I don't know. I leave that up to the expert, the finance people. That's why we pay them. We have to trust them. But what I do know is we got to get this right for our kids. We're going to have more kids that has failed. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Teachers got a raise, CSEA got a raise. Nobody talk about that.
Good evening, Superintendent, members of the board, and new members. My name is Ronaldo Santiago. I live in New Windsor. I have 5 children in district. And taking nothing away from the previous speakers, but the issue that I'm going to bring to the board does not have quite the gravity that they were speaking to, because my oldest is a senior graduating from NFA this year. And she brought to my attention an issue that I thought should be brought to the attention of the board, and it is about prom. The issue that was brought to my attention was apparently for a graduating class of 600 or so students, the capacity and the tickets for the senior prom were numbered in about 450, to my understanding, leaving about a good 150 students out. Now, I can perfectly understand that this is a large graduating class. Venues are tight within the community, but I find it hard to believe that we collectively cannot come up with a solution that will enable all of our graduating class to have what a lot consider to be a hallmark high school experience. Now, there are plenty of families who are struggling from paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes it takes time to gather up that $75 ticket. But Lord knows that almost every single child looks their parent in the eye and say, "Mom, Dad, I want to go." And then these people work and break their backs and set aside the money for tickets, for clothing, for transportation. And they do all they can. And then at the end of that to say, "Buddy, honey, I'm sorry, but you're waitlisted. You're locked out." Now, we have a very nice academic field, very large. We have tents that we can rent from Durant's. We can come up with a solution. We have folks in the community that own restaurants whose kids go to our schools who will help if we have the resources that we can go to the community to and say, "Look, we want to make this last year special for our kids." They have gone through, a lot of these kids, they went through COVID. They went through all that rigmarole, and we all were turned on our ear by that. And at the end of this year, to tell 150 kids whose families, look, maybe they were working, maybe they couldn't make it for whatever reason you want to give, to look them in the eye and say, "You know what? I'm really sorry we couldn't make it, but we can't do it." That I feel is unfair. That I feel if we can't get something like this right, to go to some of the other subjects that were brought up today, if we can't get this right, how can we look ourselves, and now let's do a budget. Now let's do bigger things. If we can't get the small things right, the big things are going to fall apart. And this is something that I felt should have been brought up to the board and given your attention. Thank you.
That was an excellent presentation, and sometimes I say we're listening. We will listen. Thank you very much. We are still on non-agenda items. Would anybody else like to speak on non-agenda items? Ms. Boucher.
Hi, I just want to touch on what that gentleman said. I was also told that their 8th grade graduation was not had because it was COVID. I'm getting a little choked up. And they haven't had any good milestones. So if we could really work on this prom for them, I know it means a lot. I've talked to a lot of kids. I've gotten a lot of messages, and they were devastated by this. And I don't put fault on anybody, but I think maybe we can rework that and fix that for them. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Still on non-agenda items. Anyone else? All right, more serious issues, 4.1, budget discussion. As no news for anybody, the budget was defeated, which leaves the board with several choices. All right, one choice is we could represent the exact same budget to the voters. It's a choice. We can move right to contingency. Also, it's a choice of the board. And for the new members, when I say the board, that the board is 5 votes. That is the way it works, so the board. Or we can take a look at it and say, let's look at this thing, see if we could adjust it, see it if we can make it more palatable to the community. It's a very, very important issue. So those are basically our choices. I'm going to go around the room. I need participation from everybody. Did you have your hand up, Mr. Howard? No. Okay. So for the new members, given those choices, Mr. Stewart, I'm welcome, and I'm very interested in what you have to say.
All right, I've been a resident since 1985. I have 3 kids that went through the school district. I was very involved when they were there. I now have a grandson in the school. I spent a lot of time going through the budgets, past, present. I started with the budget 2017, 2018. That year, the budget was audited by the state comptroller. The findings concluded that the board overestimated the previous school year's budget by $17.7 million, resulting in a surplus of $18.8. One of the recommendations was the excess should be used to reduce the taxes on the residents. That did not happen. The budget for that year, 2017-18, was $267 million. For the next 6 years, there was no tax increases. But the budget did increase each year from 2017 to 22-23 for a total of $36 million we added. Same number of students approximately. Last year, the school budget was increased by $31 million, nearly the total of the previous 6 years, for a total of $335. Mind you, the number of students remain the same. Now this year, we want to go to $360 million and raise our taxes 3.8 cents. Let me put this in a way that I figured that the public would understand. You go to a job over the last 6 years and you get modest raises. You still do your job. Then last year, the company did well, still has about the same number of customers, but they gave you almost a 10% raise. This year, you go over your household budget and you look at your projections, and for your household, you say, oh, I'm like 4% short. So you go to your boss, you say, I need another 4% raise. What's your boss going to say? Exactly what the taxpayer said. That's what I think they said. We've been entrusted to the Board of Education to oversee the district, and this is how we repay our taxpayers. I believe that we need to get together, and I encourage us to bring a new budget forth that makes sense. Now, when I looked at the budget line by line, has an item number, 3 years ago, each item number had a category, and it was easy to do. But it took me forever to break down the categories. So I'm hoping we can get the last 3 years by category, so we can do a comparison for 3 years, not just 2. Because I think that'll give us a clearer picture where we were and where we are heading. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Boucher.
Hi, good night, everybody. I really hope that we can rework the budget. I think going straight to contingency puts a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths. And I think that we should be able to take that money and rework it so it's for the betterment of the children. I think that there's been a lot of muddying in the last couple years, and I think that right now, the public has said they want what's best for the kids. I know that cutting teachers won't work. Cutting TAs won't work. People have reported to me they don't have paper in their building. They don't have pencils. You know, those things are needed. I understand technology is needed, but if we could just look at the budget and see where we can withdraw without withdrawing from the kids, I think that the public wouldn't mind an increase because it's going and allotted to the right place. So I really hope that we can work together in creating something that works for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so for the first 2 speakers, we're not contingency, we're not representing the same budget, we're looking to rework a budget.
Correct.
Mr. Howard, if you could, please.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. President. So I'm in agreement. I think we definitely cannot go with a contingency budget. I'm not in favor of that. I think we need to listen to our communities. I think we need to listen to our workers. I think we need to listen to our teachers. We need to listen to everyone. And I think that we definitely cannot put the same budget back out for a revote. But I'm hoping that the superintendent and the finance department can come to a resolution or a budget that would be amenable to all, understanding that it's about the kids, it's about students, about staying as far away. And that was one of the first things I said when we first had the budget discussion. I wanted to stay as far away from the students as possible. I'm hoping that the superintendent will come back with a budget that would be palatable for all, something that we can resoundingly have passed. And I'm going to put that onus on her. I'm going to put it on her. I'm hoping that she heard the people and that she can come back to us as a board to give us something that we feel that we can put back out to vote on June 18th, so that we can get back to the business of the district, and that is making sure that our students are taken care of. So no contingency, not the same budget, and I'm going to ask the superintendent to come back with something that we can all agree upon and vote on and that we can pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Mr. Levinstein, if you could.
Thank you, Mr. President. So Mr. Howard explained it quite well, and I agree that contingency budget is not what the students need, not what the employees need, not what the district needs. And I think that possibly reworking it to what the central office feels is the best way to go, with either reducing the tax burden, if that's possible, or putting back in some items that the community feels would be helpful to have in there, that they would go forward. Because I think the worst thing we could do is fail on a second budget, which would create the contingency condition, and I don't think that's anything anyone wants.
Thank you. I'm going to pass. I'll go last. Mr. Bergarelli.
Hi. Forgive me, my voice. Okay. I agree with everything that's said. I do not want a contingency budget either. I do not know how we go forward without some type of tax levy increase. You know, we did give raises to our unions that deserved it, absolutely. You know, I'm not going to second guess that for a second. You know, we still have to find a way to pay for this stuff without, you know, minimizing as much harm as possible to our students. You know, I encourage and urge, you know, the administration to come back, you know, rework something and, you know, trust we can find a middle ground. But I also don't really think we can go without raising the levy.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Leatley.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I think that I don't want a contingency budget, but we ultimately do have to face the facts that if this budget is voted down again, that is what we're looking at. And I think that there's a lot of misinformation out in the community, and perhaps that's our fault as a district and as a board for not educating the community as well as we could, but 3.8% is not above the levy. And for the amount, as much as I don't want taxes to go up, I have 4 children, we're a family of 6, the amount that my taxes will go up annually is not even the amount that I would pay to take my family to McDonald's for dinner. So when we look at it that way, it kind of puts things in a little bit more perspective. We did not go over the levy. The teachers and the CSEA contracts were satisfied with healthy raises and robust contracts. We made sure to do that. We made sure that cuts were equitable. There were cuts at central office. We eliminated another position. We combined curriculum and instruction from an elementary and a secondary into one position, and we made sure that that was not only a cost savings in salary, but in benefits as well. We cut from 100 to 75 administrators, and to think that we shouldn't treat everybody with respect in this district is unfair. I think we've been as equitable as we can. I think we should put this budget up again. I think that we should educate our community members and show them what this looks like. You know, I've been at the other end of this as a teacher while I was having my children, when we went through the recession. My position was cut, not because my superintendent was anti-teacher or the Board of Education was anti-teacher. It was because this is what we were working with. And we did this without anyone losing their livelihood, through attrition. I think this was quite a feat, and I'm proud of this budget. And there's a lot of rhetoric about cuts at the top. You know, the people who sit at this table, who are being paid, not the Board of Education members, they don't get tenure. They work by contracts, and they have contracts. And if we cut them, we have to pay them to sit home and do nothing. And then we get sued. So this doesn't work. This whole push is promises that can't be made. So I'm hoping that moving forward, we can work together to see that we're in this together. This is not a top-down thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bell, your list.
Okay. The rejection of the budget by the taxpayers should not be interpreted as the taxpayers' desire to skip go and go straight to contingency budget. What this rejection said to me was that the taxpayers have had enough. They're taxed out. So therefore, they're sending it back to us to trim the fat. I was not surprised at the rejection. I mean, how do you come to the taxpayers? And on one hand, you're asking for more money. Yet on the other hand, you're creating new 6-figure administrative jobs and shelling out $35,000 raises like they were pocket change. In addition to that, some teaching positions are either not being filled or cut, along with teachers' aide positions. This is contrary to the entire mission of the school district, which is to educate and empower the students. So my question is, why would you eliminate positions of those who have the most direct impact on the literacy and graduation rate and overall education of our students in favor of adding more positions to the already bloated bureaucracy? I believe most people understand that the cost of living, nearly everything today has increased. I also believe that had a reasonable tax increase been presented to the taxpayers, the budget would have passed. Unfortunately, they were presented with not only an increase, but one that far exceeded the tax cap. We as a board cannot be so insulated from the reality for so many families in our communities. I see how desperately people in my community struggle to feed their families, pay their rent, pay their taxes, pay their mortgage payments, and other bills. Increased taxes are a major contributing factor to gentrification. I do not want to see the people that I have known a lifetime be forced to leave simply because they can no longer afford to live here. I think it would be very wise of this board to go back over the budget line by line in a transparent way so that we can ensure a budget that will be accepted by the majority of voters. Always remember there are two ways to raise revenue. One is to increase taxes. The other is to decrease spending. And for those that don't know me, I'm a fan of the latter. I believe that the taxpayers sent us an important message through their vote last week. I will take my cue from the people who gave me the honor and the privilege to represent them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lady.
Just a point of order, this budget did not exceed the tax levy. That's false. The tax cap, which is also the levy, it did not exceed it.
Can I ask them why it said a 3% tax increase?
So Mrs. Rowing had an emergency this evening and she couldn't be with us, but what I can say about the tax levy is that it is a calculation that is given by the state. So it takes into account our prior our actual tax levy from the prior year. I don't want to go into too much detail because I think it's important for Mrs. Rowing to be able to have a voice in that. It is governed by the state comptroller's office. Those calculations are public online. I don't know if Mrs. Lakash also wants to add anything, or we can put that information up on the website as well.
I think it's the best thing to wait for Ms. Rowan and put that on the website, but yes, the levy, it was not over the tax cap. We were under the tax cap, otherwise it would need the majority of the voters, visit 60%, if we were over the tax cap. Thank you.
Well, I think the confusion came because it said a 3.8% tax increase, and the state has a 2% tax cap. So I think that's a reasonable assumption that 3.8 is greater than 2%.
So unfortunately, our wonderful state does a great job of making things not very clear in terms when it comes to the tax levy. It is a calculation that districts must admit. It is a part of our budget information that is online that you can look and see in terms of our three-part budget and our tax report card. And it takes into account what was levied in the prior year, what was the reserve offset. So it is important when we talk about our tax cap and our limits, because our district has not been levying in a consistent way, it has an effect on what we can have access to what we can access and what we can raise our levy limit to. There was also a couple of exemptions that went in, which is also part of the budget presentations that are online.
Okay.
Mr. Howard.
So, just in response to my new colleague, Ms. Christine Bello, who I have the utmost respect for, we've been friends for years, but I don't want to mislead the public. I don't want people to think that the tax increase, the tax levy that we use, is going to be part of the gentrification movement in this city. It's not. Because let's be real what we're talking about. I am a firm believer that we need to come back with a new budget. I'm a firm believer that it needs to be redressed. But let's not make it seem like that number is what's chasing people away, or that was the reason for the vote down. I mean, numbers alone. If you're in New Windsor, you have a $500,000 home, your increase is only $248. That's not going to cause people to leave. But what I think they weren't happy with the budget itself. It wasn't the amount. Let's not stop. I think we're scaring people when we try to attach a number or idea of a number. I mean, $400,000 home, I believe, was $238 increase for the year. So it's not that number. I think they were dissatisfied with the budget. And I think with the superintendent and finance department, they'll come back with something that's palatable for the public to vote on. But I just didn't like that scare tactic with the gentrification stuff, because gentrification is real. And it's not because of the school budget why gentrification is existing in the city of Newburgh or in our communities. And I don't want people to misunderstand that.
It's taxes in general, the ever-increasing expenses in the city, whether, with everything. I'm not talking about just school taxes. I'm telling you, I see it every day. And I see that, and what may be pocket change to you as far as a tax increase is a lot of money to other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do agree with that. But what I'm trying to say is, it shouldn't be tied to the gentrification. That's what you said. Not the people.
Look.
Excuse me. We're having a two-way discussion. We have to raise our hands for who's ever going next. Currently, Ms. Politi has her hand up.
I'd just like to point out this as an example of where misinformation was pumped out into the community. We worked very hard to make sure that we did not exceed the tax levy, and there are people at this table who thought that we did. So this is where we need to do a better job of educating ourselves and the community, because that's not what's been put out there, what people are arguing about is not necessarily the truth.
Ms. Boucher.
Yes, I'm going to agree with Mr. Howard on this one. I don't mind spending $20 more as long as it's going to the right person. So as long as my money that I'm paying every year, whether I'm a single mom, so $200 is a lot of money to me. Not that I'm saying it's not to other people, but there is no argument. It's just, please take the numbers and fix it so that it makes sense to the public, so that we can be okay and comfortable with the money and where it's going. I think that it needs to be a little more transparent as to what Ms. Politi said. I believe if it was properly addressed from the beginning, there might have not been a miscommunication. So we need to really let go of this push-pull. I think that we all need to work together. I think we can work together. And like Mr. Howard said, it's not about the percentage possibly, but it's about where it's going and how it's going to go into the district. So that is why I think reworking it with a closer number, especially if we didn't touch that cap, could be done. It could be reworked. Thank you.
Thank you. Your microphone is still on, please. Okay. We have a couple of things that are next, but I'll offer my viewpoint on where I am. I was very proud of the budget we presented. And one of the reasons was something else I was very proud of while I've been on the board is the negotiated contracts that we have in this district over the last year. And Mr. Harvey, I don't know if he's still here, but he alluded to what happens in the back. But, we try to do our best. And we knew it was a stretch going in, but people have heard me speak about, I revere teachers. We can't educate the kids without them. And we know how hard it is to retain help. I have a business. I'm always looking for help. We're always looking for help at every level of the school district. Every other memo that comes out is openings, openings, openings. We're always looking for help. So we put our heads together and said, hey, let's do the best we can, realistically. And I guess we must have done a good job because contracts were voted, favorably. Maybe we shouldn't have done this, but then the next thought was, okay, we'll get some support for this budget from the people within the district that are benefiting from the budget, benefiting in terms of financially. They're breaking their ass to do the job. They work very, very hard. There's no doubt about that. But to clear up any misconceptions, people are breaking their butt in the schools. They're also breaking their butt at this level. People around this table, the administrators, the top level that seems to keep on getting hammered. One of the easiest things you could do, and it happens in every organization, is we have to cut at the top. If you work for a company, they always want to cut the CEO. They want to cut everybody out. It sounds good. It's great rhetoric. But the reality is when that seat is empty, go around the table, empty a couple of these seats out, and see what happens. And it may not happen in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, but over a period of time, when you leave that seat empty, things start to deteriorate. People start taking advantage of a situation. So you may have thought, hey, we saved some money. We saved $150,000. I can assure you, you didn't save anything because you're going to be paying for that loss of that person. Or then when you say, hey, we better replace that position, and we've all seen this happening, and it is the world we live in. It is not the Newburgh School District. The $150,000 person cost $180,000 to replace because they're coming from a $150,000 position, and they don't want to do the $150,000 job. They want a raise. That's why they're coming. So I'm also listening tonight. I'm listening, going around the table. I realize the voters have spoken. I realize people on the board have spoken. We're going to go back and have a look at this again. We will do that. But keep in mind, we are proud of what we did. I'm going to support what we did, but I'm going to listen to people around the table. So with that said, help me out, Mr. McCoy, but we have to have a special meeting going forward.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
I think the biggest problem with the budget is year over year, we got a $31 million increase and then showed a deficit. And back in January, it was a $16 million deficit. You guys worked it down. But from 22-23 to the 2024, you got $31 million, same number of students, or approximately same number of students, and we showed it a budget deficit. I don't want to call it maybe deficit's not the word, a gap. We worked it down. But common sense tells people over the last 7 or 8 years, you got $36 million with no tax increases. All of a sudden, you got $31 million more, and now you want a 3.8 tax increase, and you're showing a gap. It just does not make sense. That's what is happening. Thank you.
Ms. Paletti.
I mean no disrespect by this. I had a lot of great ideas and a lot of ways that I saw things when I came in, and when I got on the other side, I realized, oh, I have a lot to learn. One thing that we might not see is that COVID costs a lot of money, and we got a lot of extra money from the state to put in safety protocols, extra cleaners, extra filters, revamping heating and cooling systems to keep the building safe. This was a lot of money. And we had extra staff to try and make up for the educational gap that COVID caused because kids were at home and not everybody was being supervised and everybody was logging on. And we had a real gap, and we're getting out of that now. And we didn't raise taxes for 9 years. And it's not a sustainable model.
Mr. Levinstein.
So I had a couple of points, and I'm going to just bring it up now, but it was in the finance section, and it may be apropos to this conversation. So we're going to be asked to have a budget transfer of $1.1 million for health insurance. We already had this year a $1.5 million transfer for health insurance. So this brings it up to $68.5 million. I believe I'm correct in that. So sometimes things that go up, you're 100% correct, and it goes up every year, the expenses to run this district, whether it's teacher salaries or CSEA salaries or health insurance. It's not something that we can say, no, we're not going to pay any more for health insurance, so we don't need to have a larger budget. So, and that's Resolution 9.8 that we're voting on tonight, and it's astronomical that this is the second time this year we're adding over $1 million to that line item so we can pay health insurance for our 2,000 employees. So, and now it's up to 68.5 million, and we're not done yet, so it could be more. So I was going to bring that point up under finance, but it seems like it fits to coming to this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levenstein. Mr. Stewart, go ahead.
I was going to bring that up also, Mr. Levenstein, about the health insurance. That was, I think, the March 19th meeting. We moved 1.5 million, and it stated that it was to cover the health insurance for the remainder of the year. So when they raised it in January, there is a number, and why wasn't that calculated correct that we have to come back and ask for another $1 million? The number should have been there, correct? And then we could have asked for the original amount to cover the rest of the year, and now we're coming back for another $1 million.
And again, this is something that also Mrs. Roaring will definitely clarify, Margarita, if there's anything, but it's when we also negotiate certain areas of our health insurance benefit, that happens at the mid-year point. So some of those figures, we estimate what the increases can be, but I know that we all know within the insurance field that we are seeing huge increases when it comes to health insurance. So we are projecting out what we think it can be, and that's one thing that the board has asked Mrs. Roaring and her team to do, is to make sure that we have those projections, but projections are just that, projections. So we still have to adjust and look for other areas, because as a part of our contracts, benefits are a part of that.
Before you speak, I just want to also add, Mr. Stewart, I get it. It seems as if we're taking money out, we're putting it in different places, but our students, the number is the number. Even though the number is the number at times, our students have different needs and they come with different costs. You will see throughout the entire process that we will continue to move monies around to support our students. And it varies. There are different buckets and different opportunities that we have that we must pay for. And sometimes we do estimate out based on our experience of what we spent in the year before, but that doesn't mean that that number stays the same. We do the best that we can in terms of estimating it, but then there are other costs that are associated with it.
Yes, I understand that you do move money around for necessary purposes. I found something that I found questionable. On the March 19th, we moved money from teacher kinder, teacher 4.6 longevity, and certified staff to other employee benefits. One was $4,075,343, another 85. And the next meeting on March 19th, just the opposite. You took the money out of the employee benefits and put it back where you had it. Why are we doing that?
So these questions, Ms. Roaring is not here, so she'll be able, I don't want to estimate or guess. I want to make sure that you have correct information.
Okay.
And those are things that, sitting on the board, now you have the opportunity when we present this material, we normally ask board members. Once we put the information on the agenda, then there's an opportunity to submit your questions so we can make sure that we have accurate information. I don't want us to guess on the floor and then we can't respond to you. and then we give you incorrect information. So please bear with us. She had an emergency. We'll make sure that we get those responses to you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome, sir.
Thank you. We are on a tight timeline. Mr. McCoy is going to help me with the timeline. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I wanted to also let you know that we'll provide that within the treasurer's report for you, because that information will be there.
Go ahead, sir.
So looking at my notes going around the room, it looks like there's a majority of the board unanimous at the table that wants to go out for a revote. If you're going to go out for a revote, there has to be action by the board. So the board needs to pass a resolution to adopt a new budget to then send to the voters. Normally, in a revote in New York State with the Board of Elections, since we borrow the machines from our county Board of Elections, for revotes, they must be conducted by hand. If anybody saw the process tonight with the affidavit ballots, that was 20. Okay, we normally have 2,000 voters. So normally a revote would have to be counted by hand at the 9 different sites after the polls close. I talked to the County Board of Elections today, the 2 commissioners, the Democrat and the Republican, and very kindly asked if we can use the machines. Now, Board of Elections runs the primary and then the early voting and all that. The Democrat told me, hold on, I'll ask the Republican, we'll call you back. The answer is yes, we can use the machines, with a caveat of, you must get us that information by Thursday. They have to then help us design the ballot, send that to the printer to get, all that. So if the board decides, and it sounds like they are, that they want to do a revote, the county is requiring us, if we want to use the machines, to get that information by Thursday, which then would require a special meeting of the board Thursday, in terms of timeline. Once the board then adopts it, then the public hearing for the budget would have to be 7 days before the June 18th meeting. The June 18th meeting is a standard revote day across New York State. 7 days before the revote, you have to have the public hearing, which would be June 11th. 7 days before that, you have to adopt the budget, which would be June 4th. However, the County Board of Elections, if you want to use the machines, we have to have that decision to them by Thursday. So the revised budget would have to be presented to the board on Thursday, approved by the board, and then the process for the revote would then go from there. So that's kind of the timeline, sir.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. So I said tight, but that was
So you would need,
understatement.
we would have to get a time to have that meeting on Thursday, tonight.
Yeah.
Is there a reason we can't do that tonight? If we add an item? I'm new, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ford. you go ahead.
I think what I heard from Mr. McCoy is we have to go back through the budget to figure out what we would like to reduce, what we have to reshape, what we would like to move forward, and then the superintendent would then present it to the board for consideration. We do need a little bit of time to do that.
So Thursday is in 2 days from now.
Ms. Boucher.
You want these people to do that in 2 days? Or we have to hand count them? That's the only other choice, correct?
I still believe it would be a very tight timeline, so whether it's 2 days or 3 days, we still have to get the ad in the paper. Is that correct, Mr. McCoy? And what's the due date for that? Is it Monday?
We have to notify the paper by tomorrow to then run the legal ad for Tuesday.
So can someone explain to me how we make this work so that we can rework the budget, fit in the timeline, and do it the right way that we all, I think, want to do it? And I'm sorry, I'm not even trying to be funny, but can you just make it make sense? Because 2 days is crazy, to me.
So Mrs. Roaring in her presentation talked about different areas, whether we were going to a contingency or if it was something that we had to reconsider. So Dr. Manning just went to the bathroom. I know that there's also a list of considerations that she was going to also discuss within her section. So there are different things that from the vote we have been looking and planning for. So that presentation The question on the floor, Dr. Manning, is kind of what's the process, and how are we gonna try to fit into this timeline?
Mr. Fortune.
Yeah, so I think I know there's one big chunk that we would consider. Ms. Peterson's not happy about it, but it would be the Chromebooks. We would put the Chromebooks on hold and remove that, and what is that, 1.3, 1.4? 1.8, so that's 1.8.
It's a technology.
So I know yes, it's gonna take us a lot of time to have that conversation to figure this out, because we can go after the big chunks, but then when you get down to, so where are those small ones that are gonna get us to that? That's where it gets really difficult. But if we have to do it, we have to do it, and I think we owe it to the taxpayers to do that.
Mr. Howard, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so in line with Ms. Boucher, is this doable? I mean, that's a very tight timeline. So I'm going to assume that the superintendent, since the failing of the budget last week, has been in conversation with things that might can happen or perhaps will be presented to the board in case of another budget. So it's not really that work is not going to really be done in 48 hours. Already work started, am I correct?
Dr. Manning.
Sorry for missing the original question. Apologize. So, yes, and. So I'll jump back and forth from a little bit of what I've written for everyone. So I'd like to thank many of you who responded to the letter I shared with our community on Wednesday afternoon. Some of you provided support and offered additional recommendations to reduce expenses, and others have requested additional clarification, which is what we're doing tonight. We're talking about what are some of the recommendations. I recognize that a tax increase is not ideal. The defeated budget that was presented to the community and maintained our programs that set our Go Back Nation apart. I want to be abundantly clear that the budget that we presented to the community had very minimal layoffs. We went through this presentation. We had, I want to be really cautious in how I say it, because any one person who loses their job is an income in a family. But I want to make everyone aware that the numbers in most instances for every bargaining unit was less than 5. We also know that we have other opportunities in the district, so folks were going to be able to perhaps apply for different positions. So when we put the budget forward, it was in hopes of beginning to right-size the district. Now, I know there's a lot of misinformation out there about, and I heard a little bit of it tonight, about the financial state of the district. I want to maintain and tell everyone the district is in good financial standing. We have our rating from Moody's, and we're very clear that we're in good financial position. However, when I was hired for my expertise and the understanding of long-range planning. We have not raised taxes in 9 years. And so in order to continue to run the district, we have to start looking at ways to bring our revenue up. It is not ideal. I 100% agree with you. However, this was one of the ways to begin planning to soften the blow moving forward. We use our reserves, and I know I heard that tonight. It's not best practices. If we have a catastrophic event, we'll have an issue. Mr. Stewart, you talked a little bit about some of the monies we had in reserves. We have bills that sometimes we can't avoid. We have lawsuits that sometimes we can't avoid. So some of those monies are taken out of our reserves. And we have to settle those. Sometimes we have lawsuits 20, 30, 40 years way before our time. And those are the types of things that we have to utilize and save for our reserves. We can't plan for those. So we agree. One of the other things that we know, we are moving as far away from the classroom. And I think Ms. Politi shared that in her speech tonight. We were very careful in terms of looking at not impacting classrooms. So in looking at revising the budget, we have been looking at that. This has been a 2-year process. This is not an event. We don't plan for the budget in a season. This is something that we've been looking at. We've worked with our directors, we've worked with principals, we've done classroom walks, we've worked with the master scheduler. Just really looking at classroom sizes, looking at options that we have for our scholars to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible. We did reduce some of our positions. They're through attrition. We did it by retirements, and some of the positions were vacant. So a lot of people were not impacted. I just want to make that abundantly clear. We were super cautious, and we utilized our one-time funds to try to right-size the district. Those monies are running out. So yes, long answer. We've looked at several different options. We've been planning for this for the last 2 years because we knew that the monies were going to come to an end. So we have several scenarios that we can look at in terms of how to right size. And honestly, several of them do not impact cutting humans because we understand how important it is to maintain positions in our district. And we've already cut a lot. I can tell you that. When I first arrived here, we had approximately 100 administrators. We are no longer there. We are at about 75. So I want to make sure that everyone understands we did the best that we could do and really did not impact people or programs. We looked at what we had, and we have different scenarios in which we can present moving forward. So yes, we have. We started working on it. We've been working on it. We knew this last year. We started planning for it.
Thank you.
Mr. Howard.
Yeah, so this is just a layman's question for edification of people who may not understand. So I hope you don't think I'm asking a dumb question. So on Thursday, just help with the timeline. Thursday, this board will be presented a new budget by you and the finance department and staff. We will vote on that budget, whether or not to present that to the public on June 18th. The hearing that Mr. McCoy referred to would be to present that budget to the public and for the board to sell that budget to the public. Will that budget be can it be subsequently changed, what we vote on Thursday, or what we vote on Thursday is what will go before the public on June 18th? Can you speak to that?
Yes, that's what moves forward.
Okay, so what we voted on Thursday will be what is voted on June 18th. And the hearing is just to hear from the public and to sell what we're putting forward to the public to try to get them to vote on in a positive way, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so do you have a comment? No? Okay.
Yeah, I haven't, not prepared for that at the moment. Yeah, there's gonna need to be board action on directing the clerk to put a legal ad in the paper for the date of the revote. But I have some other questions before we put that to the floor that I need to ask questions in the back. I need advice from legal counsel, sir.
Okay. We need to have a meeting on Thursday, a special meeting. Does anybody object to a special meeting on Thursday? All right, so we have to, Mr. Howard? I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Hours are, what time is it? Okay. For a time, thank you. We have to have 24-hour notice, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, what's that?
So, total transparency, Thursday is not a good day for me. I will be out of town unless you're gonna have it after 8 o'clock Thursday. Is there any way we can do it on Friday? Because I'm out of town from tomorrow, 3:30, until I'm coming back in town Thursday at 7:30. That's what time the bus is scheduled to get back here. I will be in Albany for the, is there any way that can be done on Friday?
I defer to you in the rules. Ms. Bush?
So I'm a healthcare administrator, and Thursday, I actually have to move in a bunch of people. I can't do anything till after 6:30 on Thursday. I also need childcare notice, so I'm sorry that I'm the one with the baby.
I believe we have to do it on Thursday. If we have to do it on Thursday night, then we'll do it on Thursday night. We'll introduce a time tomorrow.
The later, the better for me.
Okay, so can we do 8 o'clock Thursday? Next week?
How about this? Let's propose a couple of times tomorrow morning. We'll see what we come up, see what you agree with.
Point of order, sir. I'm sorry, but we have 8 people here. We need to get a time today, right now. Either Thursday or a time, but waiting till tomorrow, it's harder for me to get a hold of all you guys if you're not here and we're all looking at our calendars. So we really need to, the date for this has to be determined right now.
Okay, let's try it a different way. Mr. Stewart, can you do 8 o'clock on Thursday?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher, can you do 8 o'clock on Thursday? Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Burrelli, we have quorum. Ms. Ballot? And if you can, 8 o'clock Thursday night.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. All right, that's going to close the budget discussion for this evening. We're moving on to item 5, Superintendent's update.
Thank you. I would like to provide a brief update about our most important topic, our students. This morning, we had a South Middle School scholar compete in the Scripps National Spelling Bee in the Washington, D.C. area. I think the word he was given, which I will not attempt to spell, myself, may have tripped many of us up. I know that Eli represented his peers well and is just one of many of our wonderful scholars to positively represent our district on a national level. Congratulations, Eli, for making it. Yeah, that's awesome. Last week, we hosted our very own spelling bee, welcoming more than 130 spellers in grades 1 through 6 to compete for the spelling bee title in our district. I am proud of everyone who participated, and I am thankful for many, many students, faculty, staff, administrators, and families who contributed to making this wonderful event a successful one for our students. Thank you as well. Last week, I also watched our NFA P-Tech scholars cross the stage to earn their college degrees from SUNY Orange. Our district has helped nearly 150 scholars earn college degrees since this program's inception alone. Our NFA P-Tech program is a prime example of how our scholars in our community will rise to challenges set forth in front of them. This program demonstrates that our scholars are capable and that they are often brilliant. Congratulations to our scholars and their families who were right there beside them on this challenging but rewarding day. There are dozens of end-of-year events and culminating activities showcasing our student achievement throughout our district. These are the types of events that really tell the story about our district. I hope our community takes time to attend an event or two to celebrate the hard work and achievements of our students, families, faculty, staff, and administrators. Thank you, Mr. DeRay. That concludes my items for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Manning Campbell. Before we move to executive session, Mr. McCoy has a resolution he's going to introduce.
Needs to be a motion and a second to add this to the agenda. This would be the resolution for the budget revote and runoff. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby determines to hold a special district meeting for a budget revote on June 18, 2024. And be it further resolved that the board will also hold a runoff election on June 18th between Thomasina A. Bello and Philip Howard to determine who will fill the 3-year term and who will fill the unexpired term ending on June 30th, 2026. And be it further resolved that the board directs the district clerk to prepare and publish legal notice of the special district meeting for budget revote and runoff election in accordance with section 2007 of the education law.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We got a motion and a second for this resolution.
So moved.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Roll call to add Ms. Christine Bello,
Yes.
Ms. Victoria Boucher,
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Doré,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levenstein.
Yes.
Ms. Politi,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Correct.
We need a motion and a second to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Ms. Boucher,
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Doré,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levenstein.
Yes.
Ms. Politi,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Bello.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby recesses into executive session for the following purpose: employment history of employees or corporations and the matters leading to the employment of particular individuals, collective bargaining under the Taylor Law, and to obtain advice from legal counsel. Get a motion and a second to move into executive session.
So moved.
Discussion? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Loud.
Yes.
Will you absolutely assure me that nothing that is eligible for public consumption will be discussed in executive session? It is strictly non-agenda items.
All right, we will abide by every regulation to make sure that doesn't happen.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Doré, Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levenstein, Ms. Politi,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Bello,
Yes.
Ms. Boucher.
Yes.
Get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the item? Call the roll.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Doré,
Yes.
Mr. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Levenstein, Ms. Politi,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
I abstain because I wasn't here.
Ms. Bello,
I abstain, I wasn't here.
Ms. Boucher.
I abstain, I wasn't here.
That item passes.
Thank you. Item 8, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Mr. McLemore.
Thank you, Mr. President. On the Human Resources agenda, I have items 8.1 through 8.10 for your consideration on tonight.
Point of order, consent is 8.1 through 8.9.
Thank you. 8.1 through 8.9.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore. Would anybody care to separate any of these issues?
Can you separate them all out? We had nothing, no paperwork, no nothing. No laptop.
If
So I need to know what they are.
you want to go through them one at a time, we'll go through them one at a
Please.
time. Item 8.1. Motion and a second. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on 8.1?
So these are just regular, people coming in, people going out, temporary?
I didn't hear your question. Can you repeat that, please?
No, I just don't, if somebody could explain what this is about.
I think what she's asking, like, we watched a lot of these on YouTube, and it just says 8.1 to 8.10, and we don't know what the agenda is. So if we can separate it out, since we're new here, and explain what they are, so the public can understand and we can understand better, that's, I think, what she's asking.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mathemore, if you could help us out.
So these are appointments, they're professional appointments. And then, if I may, I don't want to bore you here. Professional temporary appointments, people that are appointed on a temporary basis. Then we have other professional appointments. Then we have people who are returning from the leave of absence. And then we have professional leave of absence. And then we have resignations. And then from the professional, we go to civil service, and we do the same thing. And so civil service follows professional appointments. And then we have the necrology, who are people who have passed away that were employees in the district.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
If I can also add, some of this also speaks to employees returning. Sometimes folks have taken FMLA and those types of leaves, so now they're coming back, so they're also represented in this agenda item.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you. Any further discussion on this item? We're good. Okay, call the roll.
Roll call on 8-1. Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Thank you. We're moving on to 8.2. Get a motion and a second for 8.2.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on 8.2? Ms. Boucher?
Can you tell us what the MOA is?
It's the one we just discussed with the scale?
So it's confidential? Right, okay.
Yes.
Mr. Howard, 8.2. Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
I'm going to abstain.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes. Okay, moving on to item 8.3. Can we get a motion and a second on 8.3?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on 8.3? No? Ms. Bello?
Can you enlighten us as to the cost of this?
Mr. Shaw is going to help us with that.
This involves a few teachers who are being paid either $164 or $67 for certain additional service during the summer months.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, wait a minute. Well, I have more questions. Are these full-time positions? I'm sorry. This is 8.3. Oh, okay, okay. I'm good. Mm-hmm.
All right, call the roll.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you. 8.4, resolution to approve SMOA with NTA. Get a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah.
8.4.
Yes,
Yep.
I do. I want to be clear. We're hiring 4 new positions. Is that correct?
Correct, 8.4.
This is 8.4. Hiring 4 new. Is it?
This is another
SMOA. This is the second SMOA.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, so. All right.
Mrs. Moriarty, can you open the attachment on your computer so Mrs. Bello can see that?
This is what.
It's not hiring new teachers.
Oh,
That's okay.
okay, okay.
Are we good?
Okay.
Let's call the roll.
8-4, roll call. Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Thank you. 8.5. Get a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? 8.5.
Yes.
Ms. Bello.
Now, this is for hiring, this is the one hiring 4 positions. It's funded by a grant. Okay. And are they full-time positions? 4? And are there any part-time positions in this?
Mr. Ford.
These are full-time positions for 1 year. These are paid for through Title I school improvement funds. These are targeted specifically for the CSI, our high-need school, South Middle School, the TSI schools, which is Bombville, Horizons, and Newburgh Free Academy. And another one is an ATSI, which is Gidney Avenue.
Okay.
4 of those 5 are eligible for a 1-year teacher on special assignment instructional coach, which is defined by the State Education Department, all the roles and responsibilities. After 1 year, they would return back to their regular teaching assignment.
Okay, so I'm just confused because I read through the grant, and the grant says that they will fund only 1 full-time position
Per school.
per school,
Yes,
and you
ma'am.
have 4 schools.
We have 4 schools eligible. We have 5 schools in the accountability system. Only 4 are eligible.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Boucher.
I just want to confirm this is a grant, it's not coming from the budget.
It is coming from Title I School Improvement Grant.
Thank you.
Mr. Stewart.
So this grant is per school, not per district? Is that with all the grants or just this one in particular?
This one is specific to it's one grant application with 4 schools embedded in that grant.
Thank you.
Action on this item? Call the vote.
8-5, roll call. Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving to 8.6. Get a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Discussion on 8.6. We're good?
Good.
Anyone? Call the vote on.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Thank you. 8.7. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Discussion on 8.7. Ms. Boucher.
Can you possibly just explain this a little bit?
So this particular resolution is somewhat connected to the previous one in that we have board-certified teachers to work with students in the classroom to perform, work that would help the teachers improve the education of the students. So they're actually going to be looking at planning, they're going to be delivering things such as PD, professional development.
Point of order, Mr. McLemore. Mr. Forge is going to fill in.
Yeah, Mr. McLemore, I think this one is for the nationally board certified teachers as facilitators. These are the individuals that will be assisting the candidates who are applying for national boards to get through that process. I think we're on 8.7, correct?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
so
That's correct.
these are already nationally board certified teachers who are mentoring and coaching our new individuals that are preparing to be nationally board certified. They coach them through that process. It's very rigorous.
Yes, that's correct. The previous one, when I say it was connected, one was the planning to look at the program and see how effective it is. This one is to support and help facilitate the teachers that are going through the process.
Mr. Stewart?
It says here it's at $78 an hour. Do we have a limit or a maximum number of hours to this?
I don't recall what the number of hours are. It's embedded in the contract.
In 8.6, it indicates that it's not to exceed 30 hours, so it's embedded in the resolution before in 8.6.
Mr. Forget?
Mr. Forget wants us.
So 8.6 is something that we're working on as a new kind of process this year. We are updating the current mentor training for new teachers as they come in. So what you voted on 8.6 is really the training that we're designing the training for the mentors that are going to be providing support to all new teachers that are hired. That's what 8.6 is. 8.7 is specifically regarding national board certification. And the national board certification is contractual, the amounts that are in there.
Thank you.
Any further on 8.7? Good. Call the vote.
Ms. Boucher?
No.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
I'm going to abstain on this one.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
That item passes.
Thank you. 8.8, get a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on 8.8. Good.
None.
We're good. Call the vote.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Thank you. 8.9, could a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion on 8.9? No. Call the vote. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Stewart.
Is this a new position?
It's a vacant position we're filling.
Any further discussion? Call the vote.
Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Yes. Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Abstain.
Ms. Bello?
Abstain.
Ms. Boucher?
No.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
That item passes.
8.10. Get a motion and a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion on 8.10?
Yes. Are these, yeah, I, okay. Since we're unsure of the budget, shouldn't we table this until the budget is approved?
We're not unsure of the budget. We've budgeted for the compensation packages for all three of our units. We budgeted for the teachers. They received their raises. We budgeted for CSCA. They've received their raises. And the administrative unit is the last unit. But this is completely budgeted for. And I'll try to reiterate what I said earlier. The district is in good financial position. The long-range planning that I've been tasked to do since being here as a superintendent is to really start to look at how we begin to rebuild our funds, because we have not raised taxes in the past 9 years. So make no mistake, we have allocated, we have enough money to cover, we have restricted reserves. It is just not responsible to go back into the reserves. And so the raising of the taxes is to do what's fiscally responsible for our district community. But the administrative unit by no means is going to tip our scale. We've already forecasted and planned for this. It's part of our operating processes.
Thank you. Mr. Levinstein.
So Dr. Manning Campbell basically answered what I was going to ask, that we did have similar agreements with the NTA and CSCA, and it's now time for the administrators unit to have their contract settled. So we will have, and that's what I was just checking to make sure that that was the case. Thank you.
Mr. Forget.
Just one point of clarification, because we have new members this evening. This particular agreement is for the administrator's bargaining unit, which would include all the principals, assistant principals, supervisors, and directors. They are the individuals that make up the NASA unit. The senior staff, the executive team, have individual contracts with the board. They are not included in this contract. This contract is specifically for the principals, assistant principals. There are approximately 75 or 76 individuals within that organization.
Thank you, Mr. Forget. Bello.
When did these contracts expire?
June 30th, 2024.
So they expire in June?
Yes, they do.
So, and if we didn't pass this, and I just don't think that you should encumber a future council, since we know, future board, since we know that the board is going to change, and even if we tabled it and then voted it later on, it's all retroactive anyway, so it's not going to affect the teachers.
The teachers receive their monies. The teachers' contracts have been settled for several $million per year. We also did a retirement incentive of 50% of the compensation for the teachers. The CSCA received their contracts. Both units, the best perhaps since 2007 or before. Let me repeat myself. There is a lot of misinformation about the district's financial status. The administrative unit deserves to receive their raise as well because they work really hard, and it is the goal and the purpose for us to give them a contract that honors their work. And so we are not in a fiscal hole. This is the work of the district. And it's important that we recognize the last bargaining group, which is the administrative group.
Mr. Stewart.
Is a 3-year contract the normal contract, or can it be year to year?
It is a normal contract, a 3-year contract. The CSEA was also a 3-year contract. And in that, we did 2.5%, 3%, and 4%. And this maintains a 3% increase across all 3 years.
Ms. Boucher.
Just to be clear, this would not be changed if the budget was reworked. This is something to stay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. We've forecasted and planned for this, so this is in.
Any further discussion? Call the vote.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
No.
Ms. Boucher?
No.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
That item passes.
Mr. President, I'd like to add an item.
Okay, please read.
Be it resolved that the board hereby denies a legal defense and indemnification against damages to Michael Simmons based upon his untimely demands under Education Law 3023, 3028, 3811, and Public Officers Law 18, and for his alleged actions beyond the scope of his employment in the case of Azoria et al. Versus Newburgh and Large City School District et al., Orange County Supreme Court, index number EF003246-2024.
Thank you. Can I get a motion and a second to add?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Get a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
So point of order, we have a motion and a second to add it. We just need a roll call to add.
Okay, excuse me.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you. Can we get a motion and a second on the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Please call the roll.
Ms. Politi?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Duray? Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore. For Finance, Ms. Peterson?
So this evening, we have items 9.1 through 9.8 on a consent.
Thank you. Would anybody care to separate these items?
Oh,
go through
Ms. Bello?
Can you separate, do them individually?
One at a time?
Yeah,
Okay, that's fine.
thank you.
So item 9.1 is the treasurer report. This is an annual report that is given by the treasurer, which is a board-appointed position, and these are the reports that are for the month of April.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes, I went through this entire report. Oops. I went through the report and printed it out. Can we look at the revenue status report? I think it's 7th or 8th page in.
I'm sorry, what page, Mr. Stewart?
The revenue status report as of 4/30/24. All right, the first line has the original estimate, and it balanced out pretty good. And I looked at all the grants, and they balanced out well also. I have a couple questions. Line item, refund, PY, which probably is previous year, exemption not other. And that amount is for $1,848,550, so that's an excess revenue. Then if you go down to where it says lottery, we have, original estimate is 0, and it says we collected $27 million. And on the last page, it says we should have an excess of $34,953.
Okay, so I know that we definitely have to bring clarification for the treasurer. One of the line items that you mentioned was the E-rate line, which I happen to know about because I'm the I think you threw a soft one at me, is because that is a part of the technology program. So what the E-rate program does is it allows the district reimbursement for certain projects and also internet infrastructure. So those repayments to the district come at when the government releases the money through the verification of submission of bills and actual payments as such. So what I can do for the questions that you have with the treasurer's report, we can send those off to the treasurer because she's the one that prepares and she's the one that monitors all the credits and debits from all the district accounts and have those questions answered for you. So I know that you had a question and we can connect, or if you want to put it in writing, exactly what you need to have answered and kind of the differences, and she will give you the explanation on each one of those lines.
Go ahead, Mr. Stewart.
So one of my questions is, when we print it out for the public, none of these line items show up for the public to see, like the lottery is not there. We do show the interest, which we estimated at $400,000, and year-to-date, we got $3,184,000, a difference of 2.7. In the last presentation, it was 2.1. And we have excess revenue from real property taxes. So if we take all this into consideration, and we bring this into the budget, common sense says.
Right, but with school fiscal, the way the opening and closing of years happen, it's not always that clear cut. And I don't want to mislead you by answering you incorrectly. I need the treasurer to look at what your questions are and explain, because expenditures from grant and expenditures from aid and different ways about real property tax, how that hits our rolls is different. It's not the same as, though we all follow general municipal law, there's certain reimbursements that come at different times. So I want to make sure that I'm giving you the correct answer, so I will take your questions and have the treasurer get back to you on some of them.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Boucher.
Is there any way to table this until next time? For clarification, because I think there's a lot of questions, and I'm, no disrespect to you, but I think.
Listen, I'm filling in this
I know
evening,
you are.
so I am glad
Right.
that I am answering
Right.
as well as I am, but
Right.
this is something that, this is a treasurer, and the treasurer, just so that you're aware, the treasurer is directly to the board. We don't, she reports based on what her role is. It's a direct report to the board. So these are her reports, so I don't want to misrepresent her work.
I just need some direction on what to do from here.
Yeah.
Mr. Livingston, go ahead. Well, you can, I can, or you can. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, but I was going to just explain that you can ask for this item to be tabled, and then we would take a vote from the board members, and we would need a second, and then if 5 people vote to table it, then we can table it. If not, then we just continue on with this.
Mr. Stewart, go ahead.
Yeah, with all the questions of the revenue coming in, I think this absolutely needs to be tabled because there is like 5 items that were not listed in the original estimate that show up as revenue that we received, and that would make a big difference in us determining the budget.
Ms. Peterson.
I also want to say with certain revenue pockets that do come in, and this is really why we need the treasurer, we do get certain revenue that comes to the district, but it only can be used for in certain ways. So the E-rate, for instance, yes, that's a large revenue pocket, but that can only be used on an E-rate project. So that may be the best for us to table it, and then but that's a vote of the board.
So can I make a motion to table this?
So point of order.
Point of order.
I'm looking at my sheet, and I don't see anybody that put it on the floor yet. I think we just started asking questions.
I did.
Which is fine. So somebody just needs to put it on the floor first, and then we can do the tabling.
Second.
Okay. So now it's on the floor, and now if somebody wants to put it on a motion to table, that can happen now.
I'd like to put a motion to table this item.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
There's no discussion on tabling.
Okay, sorry.
So we'll call the roll. Mr. Stewart to table 9-1.
Yes.
Ms. Bello.
Yes.
Ms. Boucher.
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Duray.
No.
Mr. Howard. Mr. Levinstein.
No.
Ms. Politi.
No.
5. That item's tabled.
Thank you.
Item 9.2.
Can we get a motion and a second on 9.2?
So moved.
Sorry. Second.
Any questions? Any questions? Any discussions on 9.2?
Yes. What schools are affected, or is this just a building, or are these schools?
So,
This is, oh, no, 9.2, correct?
so Andy, Mr. Villa.
Is this bid was put out to work with a bond project that we're working on the schools as we open walls and move piping, some of them inside the walls have asbestos. So this is to support the construction project, the capital project.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? A lot of open mics. Please call the roll.
Roll call on 9-2. Ms. Bello.
Yes.
Ms. Boucher.
No.
Mr. Bergarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Duray.
Yes.
Mr. Howard. Yes. Mr. Levinstein.
Yes.
Ms. Politi.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
9.3, get a motion and a second, please. Discussion on the item? Call the roll.
Ms. Boucher.
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Duray.
Yes.
Mr. Howard. Mr. Levinstein.
Yes.
Ms. Politi.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Ms. Bello.
Yes.
9.4, could I get a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on 9.4?
I have one.
Ms. Boucher, go ahead.
Is there any way you can tell us what the error was?
It's saying within the resolution that there was a clerical, that it was supposed to be enhanced star, so the school tax was supposed to indicate 1041, so the reduction is within the resolution.
Thank you.
Yes, and that is a part of the tax office, which is also a direct report to the board.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bergarelli.
Yes.
Mr. Duray. Mr. Howard. Mr. Levinstein.
Yes.
Ms. Politi.
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes.
Ms. Bello.
Yes.
Ms. Boucher.
Yes.
Item 9.5, do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on 9.5? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Politti?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
9.6, we had a motion and a second, please.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on 9.6?
Yes, I was just wondering,
Excuse me, Ms. Belli, got it.
oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Stewart, go ahead, please.
So I think it's commendable that you're getting together to look at electric rates and gas rates. Has the school considered anything with community solar? They're putting solar fields all over the place, and if we can link up with them.
Who's going to respond? Mr. Voss, go ahead.
Mr. Stewart, we have solar panels in 9 out of our 14 schools. We have over 1,200 solar panels in our schools.
Yeah, with the New York State law, you can also apply for community solar, even if you have solar on your house, and it's up to a 10% reduction if you link to a field.
Yes, we know that, but this was done through the energy performance contract that we did 3 years ago.
That's different.
So we have to wait for that.
That's
And
different.
that takes 15 years for the payback.
Yep, that's different. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Les.
Are all these counties coming together to get a better group rate? Is that the? Okay.
Yes, that's correct. They all coming together to get the best pricing for the districts.
Okay. I was just, because I thought we were paying for different counties, but no. Okay. Thank you.
We good? Any further discussion?
9.6, roll call. Mr. Howard? Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Politti?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes. 9.7, can we get a motion and a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on 9.7? Please call the vote.
Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Politti?
Yes.
Mr. Stewart?
Yes.
Ms. Bello?
Yes.
Ms. Boucher?
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli?
Yes.
Mr. Doré?
Yes.
Mr. Howard?
Thank you. 9.8, get a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on 9.8? Mr. Stewart?
Yeah, like we discussed before, we moved 1.5 million back on March 19th from tutors to health insurance, and it was supposed to cover the health insurance for the remainder of the year, and now we're bringing up to move 1.1 million from teachers 4 to 6 to health insurance. With the rates, I know they went up, but couldn't we have calculated that we had the correct number back in March? Why are we asking for more is my question.
So, again, I think in the initial response, I don't know if at that time, and then Margarita, you can also support as well, there may have been a recalculation in terms of what was owed, and then an additional expense may have hit after that initial calculation.
And usually at this time of the year, we also get our actual expenses, like by before we close the year. And these actual expenses, we do the transfers based on our actual expenses are, instead of just estimated expenses at the beginning of the year.
Ms. Boucher?
So is this something we can expect to continue every year? If this is the projection and then it's the real, the projection, then the real? That's just the reality of the situation?
I think that's.
Yes, and that happens with everything, with transportation, with students with disabilities, with all of our expenditures that happens. We estimate, and then we get the actual.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that was also one of the budget items that we did discuss, that health benefits, and we understand that that's our biggest driver. So there have been steps that we have talked about in terms to address some of this concern.
Thank you. Any further discussion on 9.8? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Politi,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart,
Abstain.
Ms. Bello,
Yes.
Ms. Boucher,
Yes.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Doré,
Yes.
Mr. Howard, Mr. Levinstein.
I like to thank Kimberly Roaring, who's not here, who's prepped me well. Because it's definitely hard for finance to just pick that up. But that concludes the finance section this evening.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Assistant Superintendent Exceptional Learners. Mr. Baer, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Exceptional Learner Division has item 10.1 for the board's consideration.
Could we get a motion and a second on 10.1, please?
Second.
Discussion on 10.1. Oh, Ms. Boucher, I'm sorry.
I just want to confirm, 3 of us have not received these reports as of yet. We haven't been able to look at them, so I just want to put that out there.
Any further discussion, 10.1? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Bello,
I'll abstain.
Ms. Boucher,
Abstain.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Doré,
Yes.
Mr. Howard, Mr. Levinstein,
Yes.
Ms. Politi,
Yes.
Mr. Stewart.
Abstain.
Thank you. That thankfully concludes my items for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Baer. Moving to item 12, adjourn the meeting. Could we get a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Call the roll.
Ms. Boucher,
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Bergarelli,
Yes.
Mr. Doré, Mr. Howard, Mr. Levinstein, Ms. Politi, Mr. Stewart,
Yes.
Ms. Bello.
Yes.